Good morning, everybody. This is Nick Mon. This is Monday, July 21st, and I'm here giving you a little bit of a late weekly recap of the portfolio. So this is from previous week ending on Friday. As you can see, the screen's fluctuating a little bit because the pre-market Monday morning action has started to take an effect. So that's made a little bit of a change to the portfolio, but not by much because there's really is not much to update you guys on. Um, and that's because I didn't really make any option plays. As you can see, so I'll get into the option plays, but as you can see, the portfolio is at 116,000. My buying power is at 4,000 and some change. And you might be thinking, hey, what the heck happened? I had 40 or $50,000. So how to drop down to that low? And not to worry, guys. This is just cash. I still have that very liquid. I just happen to put that in a treasury ETF where it can generate some yield while I'm still waiting to make some plays, which I'm actually waiting on because it's earnings season. And I want to be cautious. I want to tread carefully. I want to see the reports and see how the companies do, and then use that information to adjust my plan going forward. So, going into my outstanding option plays, this right put option has been sitting there for a while now. I mean, this goes out to January 16th, which is the expiration for 2026. I'm up on it a decent amount, as you can see, 80%, $176. I could cash out and not have to wait around 7 months to collect $44. Doesn't seem, I don't know. It doesn't seem all that practical, but it's also not hurting me just by staying in there. It's just very low collateral. Moving down, as you can see, I've got my positions of Google, UPS, PayPal, AMD, and I've been holding these for a couple weeks now. AMD, PayPal, and Google have been my long-term holds for over a few months. UPS, I was recently assigned a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago actually. And since I was assigned, I'm actually down on it a little bit because my the put that I was assigned on was $102 minus the premium that I'd collected, which was $55. So if you subtract out the 55 from the 102, you're left with the 101.45 average cost, which, as you can see, I'm down on it a little bit, and I haven't really looked into selling any covered calls because UPS UPS reports their earning by the end of this month. So does PayPal. So I believe the earnings date is July 29th for both of these guys. Google is actually reporting earnings this week on the 23rd, believe it or not. So that's Wednesday coming up. And I haven't sold any covered calls on Google in a really long time. And as you can say, I'm only up on it a little bit, almost like 6%. But I want for this stock, for the Google stock, to go through the earnings. I want to see what they have to report. And if it goes up from there, I will look to sell covered calls. And AMD, have not really sold any covered calls on this either. Just really riding the wave, guys. And I'm kind of glad I haven't been selling covered calls on AMD because it has been on a tear. So it's nice to capture the appreciation whenever you can. And yeah, so I've got some other positions. Really, they're just minor things that I just buy here and there. I have 170 shares of SCHG, 107 shares of SCHD. So SCHD is the dividend equity fund by Schwab, and then SCAG is the growth fund by Schwab. Very low cost, almost the same as your VOO. So really doesn't matter. I just chose to pick these just because, really no specific reason. And the last point I want to hit on is SGOV. So I have about $35,000 of this, and I'm up on it a little bit. And this is really what I mentioned earlier. I took my buying power, put it into this. This is for to generate some yield while it's just sitting there. And I'm not really using it, which I don't intend to use my buying power anytime soon, at least not for the next week or so. So let's see. Let's see. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm up 15 bucks, which, if I didn't have it sitting here, I wouldn't have the 15 bucks. So this is great. If you have just some cash sitting around and you don't know what to do with it just yet, and you don't want to expose it to the market volatility, I think this might actually be a pretty good option. At least it is for me. By the way, this is not financial advice. This is just me speaking my opinions and what I would do and what I actually am doing with my money. If you choose to do it, that is strictly on you. But this is how I am going about managing my cash and my portfolio. And yeah, I think I just want to wrap this up by saying that, collecting premiums is nice, but, we don't want to get so lost into the collecting cash game, because at the end of the day, the point is to grow your money, grow your portfolio, whether you do it by income generation, where you're selling cash secured puts and covered calls, or you're letting your shares appreciate. Either way, your portfolio, your asset is growing, right? So as I said, even though I wasn't selling any covered calls, I'm down on some of the positions. You can see that over the course of the past week, I'm still up to 2.12%. This is without selling covered calls or cash secured puts. It could have been amplified, but I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. So you don't always have to do it. All right. So I use my covered call, cash secured put strategy around my portfolio on how I can grow it. So as you can see, up by 2.12% in the last week. And you might be wondering, hey, what does that compare to the index if I just had my money sitting there? So let's go and check that out. Let's check SPY. Course of week, 1.27%. Guys, I'm almost, without selling any covered calls, almost pacing the index ETF, S&P 500 ETF by almost a percent. Not a full percent, but almost 8%. About like 0.8%, I think. So pretty solid. And you might say, hey, S&P 500 moves slow these days. Let's check the Qs. Week, 1.85%. Not as big of a gap, but still about a quarter of a percent. This is without selling cash secured puts or covered calls. So there's definitely value. There's definitely value. I encourage you to look past just the income generation, because if I actually was just looking for income generation and I decided to sell covered calls on AMD, guys, I would have been caught heavy-handed, going into earnings. I would have been in a bad spot. I would have been in a bad spot. Um, it would have been nice to collect, a couple $100 of premium, but I would have lost out on thousands of dollars of appreciation. So please keep that in your mind. Same thing with Google. It crossed my average cost, but I did not sell covered calls on it, because I actually believe in that Google can actually go up a lot higher. We'll see what the earnings have to say, excuse me. But appreciation counts, and your income counts, and your dividends count. So what combination of that works best for you? That's for you to decide. The only thing that I would leave off with is that the portfolio can still hit highs, outperform the index by you not having to make impulse decisions by selling cash secured puts or covered calls when you don't feel comfortable with the prices that are available to you for the assets that you would actually like to own. That is the most important part. Assets that you would actually like to own, because the worst case scenario that could happen is that shit goes way south and you are left holding the bag. And are you going to be okay holding the bag? That's the answer you got to answer for yourself. So take that as advice or just some bullshit some guy on the internet saying. Um, After all, it is my opinion, not financial advice. So have a great Monday. Have a great week. And I hope to give you guys another update, hopefully this time more timely. Until then, have a great one.